Throughout the Cold War, the Soviet Union and China had a convoluted relationship. While some may argue the Cold War was a time of fragile national relationships and wasted time, China and the USSR were an example of a successful diplomacy. They proved this through the Sino-Soviet Treaty that promised friendship and mutual assistance. Their perseverance through altercations to differing alliances and proving success through their current-day relationships.
The Cold War began in 1947 and was commonly described as a continuing confrontation. It is known to be a conflict between the USSR and the United States, but another very prominent country involved was China. The current leader of China was Mao Zedong, a communist leader. He came into office in 1943 and stayed in office until the exact day he died. Mao created Maoism and stated, "Communism is not love. Communism is a hammer which we use to crush the enemy." In Russia, they were being led by a man named Joseph Stalin. Like Mao, he believed in communism and was committed strongly to Marxism. He wanted rapid industrialization of Russia and had full control. Because of the two countries' similarities, Mao reached out for an allyship, and Stalin refused. Mao was humiliated, but Stalin changed his tactic. He reached out for a treaty of friendship, alliance, and mutual assistance, which was signed on February 14, 1950. Their friendliness didn't last as long as they had hoped. For 3 years during the Korean War, the two countries assisted each other and their partnership was strong. Not long after, they began to recognize a pattern of disagreement over events they had to handle together, including the Sino-Indian Border War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and when the Sino-Soviet Nuclear Corporation was canceled. All of these events led to a split of the Sino-Soviet alliance in 1960. The Cold War continued on, and the USSR and China continued to have to face each other, and America. America was posed as a great threat for China, and they jumped on the opportunity for an alliance. Warsaw held many Sino-American talks that seemed to be progressing their relationship for the better. The bond of China and the United States didn't last long when Mao decided to focus on the Third World. He stated in 1974, "We hope the Third World will unite. The Third World has a large population." He wanted to use this to his advantage, but it was not as much of interest to the Third World countries, making it an embarrassing failure. The Soviet Union had a complicated relationship with America as well. From the years 1960 to 1970, tensions on the brink of war rose, with missile threats, meetings, and sending aid to Soviet-related conflict in Vietnam. After around 15 years of being apart, China and the Soviet Union wanted to make amends after all the time of threats and bickering. From 1985 to 1989, they reached to make amends relating to changes in both of their governments' dynamics. They now saw eye to eye in political, economic, and diplomatic structures implemented by both governments in the 1980s. Their friendly stance still lasts today, showing they continue to support each other in conflict.
In the end of the Cold War, the Sino-Soviet diplomacy proved to be successful, and everything came down to one thing: the Treaty of Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Assistance. Mao and Stalin had a lot of back and forth in becoming friendly with each other, and Mao suggested an alliance, but it seemed too dangerous to Stalin. Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin eventually agreed, through diplomatic relations, to make a Treaty of Friendship. Stalin made it clear that he didn't want an alliance. Instead, they agreed on a treaty. This treaty was called the Treaty of Friendship and Mutual Assistance. Essentially, it promised cooperation and peace between the two countries. It gave both countries a glimpse of what would be possible together as an alliance, and as the two most powerful countries in the world. After they split, things were strange for China in the Cold War. They were everywhere and conflicting, especially with America. The USSR was in dangerous conflict with America and other countries, including Vietnam. Both China and Russia tried to make outside alliances, but none seemed as successful or strong as they had hoped. When China and the Soviet Union decided to make amends in the 1980s, it proved they could be successful and were able to put things in the past for both of them. The changes that they saw in each other's government strengthened their relationship because it showed how much they had in common.
When China and the Soviet Union decided to make amends in the 1980s, it proved they could be successful and were able to put things in the past for both of them. The changes that they saw in each other's governments strengthened their relationship because it showed how much they had in common. The Marxist and communist space of both countries proved the diplomacy could come to a successful end. From the 1980s to the now, partnership has proved successful in many ways. The similarities of the two countries have always brought them back together, despite bumps in the road. In 2001, leaders of China and Soviet Russia signed a new treaty, the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation. This success contained 25 articles and was made when China and the USSR came together to resist America's missile plans. The Sino-Soviet relationships may be rough on the outside, but have always resolved themselves.
During and after the Cold War, China and the USSR had a complicated relationship that made amends and proved how successful both of the countries could be together. Their relationship, however, was not flawless. After turmoil in their relations, diplomacy was difficult, and the short-term effects of their original partnership showed this. They went through many arguments and split after 10 years, but then realized their potential. They both changed for the better of each other after the split. While they had to overcome many obstacles to come to an agreement of friendship and peace, they were able to keep a healthy friendship when they needed it most. In the long term, the two countries came together in the early 2000s and signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation. Currently, China and the Soviet Union still enjoy the benefits of being in an alliance without actually being in an official partnership. This is due to the fact that they both still have differing alliances and ideals. Officially becoming allies would shift all of that around and cause tension unnecessarily. Other countries and their agendas made it especially difficult to come together, but Russia and China continue to support each other, proving that despite their differences, their diplomacy was successful.
Though China and the USSR had a complicated relationship, they proved to be an example of successful diplomacy through the long-term success of the Treaty of Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Assistance. They're struggling through relationships with outside countries, yet coming back together, and where they are now as two friendly, powerful countries that stand as a threat to many more.